Pota. The reason why we're organizing this global show. Hello, my name is Vikas Pota. The reason why we're organizing this global showcase for World Education Week is we believe that schools have incredible expertise in making sure that learning outcomes improve. Given the state of the world, we want to see the expertise from this particular school being replicated in schools all over our planet so that the world becomes better for everyone. That is why I can and hope that those listening can take away conclusions as to how they should actually approach their own improvement journeys. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you in many of the other events this coming week. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for supporting this incredible work, without whom we couldn't have put together this global showcase. Thank you, and I wish you well for this event.
Fast-paced social, economic, and technology-driven change is redefining our world. And having a broad range of skills, such as creativity and problem-solving, has become far more important than being able to memorize information. To redefine how our children learn and to empower them for the future, parents, teachers, and policymakers must stop overlooking a powerful part of the solution: learning through play. Play is the rocket fuel of child development, and there is a growing body of evidence to support that play is fundamental for children's positive growth and well-being over time. It is also an essential way to foster the skills required to thrive in today's world. The LEGO Foundation aims to build a future in which learning through play empowers children to become creative, engaged, lifelong learners. To do so, we work with a range of partners around the world to change the hearts and minds of all of those who influence children's lives through our programs, research, and advocacy, so they can all embrace the transformative power of play. Examples of what we do include making sure that caregivers, practitioners, and policymakers understand the importance of play, investigating, testing, and scaling new ways to bring play-based learning into homes and schools, using play to help millions of the world's most vulnerable children cope with adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress, or conducting research with some of the world's leading research institutions. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more.
Language connects us all. It's how friendships are formed, ideas are shared, and lessons are learned. Language is how we find understanding and express love. It's how we communicate our successes, both big and small. It lays the groundwork for learning and growth. And for an increasingly diverse student population, it can be the key to achievement in school and beyond. That's why Rosetta Stone Education is dedicated to language and literacy. We offer solutions designed to support teachers and their emergent bilingual students, recognizing and celebrating the knowledge, culture, and languages they bring to our classrooms. Our products are founded on the adaptive blended learning model for individual needs, continuous progress monitoring for better learning outcomes, and culturally responsive pedagogies for more inclusive classrooms. With solutions aligned with proficiency standards, we support language learning while exploring academic subject areas, paving the way to better outcomes. Because for all of us, language is everything.
Dear T4 community, we talk a lot about teachers these days, but we rarely listen to them. Therefore, I am truly excited to join the T4 World Education Week to hear from teachers and school leaders all over the world how we can impact learning together. I'm particularly looking forward to the global showcase. 100 schools sharing their expertise and best practices, I believe, will be a huge motivation for other schools around the globe. I'm equally impressed by the T4 Solutions Challenge, its finalists and their solutions to real-world issues in education. This gives me hope that we can, together, turn around education globally. The Jacobs Foundation is a proud supporter of the T4 World Education Week because we share a vision to reimagine learning and education by bringing together the brightest people who understand how children learn. Let's do this together.
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings from Washington, D.C. I'd like to welcome you all to today's panel discussion hosted by the Baptist Primary School in Ogun State, Nigeria. My name is Bayo Oyewole. I'm an ambassador for Teach for Nigeria and retired recently from the World Bank after a long career there. I run an independent consulting firm in Washington, D.C., where I live. This is the last in a series of 6 T4 World Education Week panel discussions organized by Teach for Nigeria in partnership with the T4 organization all this week to commemorate Teachers' Day, which was on October 5. As many of you know, in 2015, the United Nations agreed with all countries around the world on a set of 17 targets, the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs as they're known. If we were to achieve these SDGs by 2030, we would go a long way towards ending world poverty and promoting equitable growth. One of these goals, SDG 4, relates to quality education. Progress in achieving SDG 4 has been slow, and with only 10 years left until 2030, we still have our work cut out for us. Through the T4 Education Week, we are trying to strengthen efforts to achieve SDG 4 by combining and sharing our collective experience to make sure that every child has a better quality of education. T4 is doing this by selecting 100 schools across the world to showcase their unique expertise in 5 thematic areas. These areas include building programs to enhance employability, entrepreneurship, and life skills, promoting the science of learning and teaching, deepening family and community engagement, focusing on well-being, and the use of technology. In Nigeria, 6 schools were nominated for their exceptional work and unique expertise, 5 of which are Teach for Nigeria partner schools in Ogun State and Kaduna State in Nigeria. The aim is to share with the world key strategies, learning experiences, and success stories that help in promoting a higher and better standard of education for all that can be replicated in similar schools, similar contexts around the world. We've had participation from a wide spectrum of stakeholders around the world, including teachers, government officials, the private sector, professional organizations, civil society organizations, philanthropists, and so on. Today's theme, the use of technology, seeks to create awareness about how technology has been used to drive learning outcomes in underserved and remote communities where most learners have limited access to these technologies. So what is educational technology, or EdTech as it's often referred to? It's a set of tools that provides a way for students to learn digitally. It's back in the 1960s when TV and radio were used to provide educational content for students and teachers. The use of media continued into the 1990s with education software and CDs. Today, students use tablets and other mobile devices that allow them to access books and information that they may not have been able to access otherwise. The use of mobile devices has seen particular success in some African countries. This use of EdTech may help African students overcome the gap they face to catch up with higher income countries. The different speakers representing the Baptist Primary School have successfully incorporated the use of technology to facilitate teaching and learning for both educators and students alike who ordinarily would not have had access to them. And today we have a high-powered panel of speakers. Our aim is to propose specific strategies that we can share with schools in other parts of the world for replication in their own environments. So we're going to start with Ms. Precious Adegunle, who currently works as a Teach for Nigeria Fellow with a non-profit organization whose mission is to end educational inequity. After years of working in the banking sector, she ended her career to follow her passion to teach underserved kids. This followed years of part-time volunteer work teaching free literacy classes to children in low-income schools and communities. She participated in the UN Women's Shadowing Program, where she was mentored by the Minister of Women Affairs. She graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree from Covenant University. So Precious, over to you. Can you just tell us a little bit about the strategies you've adopted?
Thank you so much, Mr. Oyewole, for that warm introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Precious Adegunle, and I'm just going to be speaking, like you mentioned, on the use of technology. And I'm going to particularly speaking on strategies for promoting access and inclusion. All right, just to go right into it. At the crux of the pandemic, you might not know that we had 1.2 billion students at home out of a 7 billion population. So that's pretty significant. 1.2 billion students at home. And it was something interesting happened here in Nigeria. The private schooling system, they were able to rally together and they got their acts together and started teaching their kids through online platforms, through e-learning platforms. But the public schooling system was at a disadvantage because there was such a huge and significant digital divide. And so for majority of the lockdown period, many pupils were not learning. Ours was for like 5 months. The schools were closed for like 5 months, and majority of the kids were not learning. We've always known how important educational technology is. And when I was preparing for this, I went online, and overwhelmingly, I've seen a lot of studies that have gone to show that learning through online platforms is so beneficial for the kids. You might not know that students retain actually 60 to 80% of what they learn online, as opposed to 8 to 10% that they learn in the classroom. So educational technology, technological resources are just so important for kids to learn. But that's not unfortunately, majority of the kids we have do not have access to these educational resources. So I'm just going to go through a couple of strategies I have outlined that I think is really important and can help to promote access. So the first one I will say is prioritization. I feel like we have not prioritized the need for access to technology. It's unfortunate is not the word, but it's just quite underwhelming that we have all these other many SDGs, but for us to address the issues of these SDGs, we cannot address them in a sustainable or scalable way if we don't use technology. Pick any SDG off the top of your head. Say SDG 13, climate action. Majority of the fight for climate action, to fight against climate degradation, climate change awareness, majority of it is fought online. So there is no other SDG goal that we want to attempt to address that we don't need technology. And the same goes for education. The same goes for access to excellent education. So we need to prioritize access to technology. Another strategy for promoting access to technological resources for me is public-private partnership. I think let me say this one that is really important. Policy development. I've seen a lot of people in power just go with this charming rhetoric that, oh yes, they agree that we actually do need to provide access to technology. I mean, some countries have even gone as far, like Finland and Mexico, they've gone as far to include it as part of the human rights law, as a part of fundamental human rights law, in their fundamental human rights law. They've gone to include it. They've gone as far as that. But in majority of the underserved countries, there is no incentive, and it needs to go from just that rhetoric of, oh, we need to provide access to technology for underserved individuals, and go to an actionable responsibility. And thirdly, we need to take personal responsibility. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the first month passed, and I was one of those optimists. I was like, oh, definitely, we're going to figure it out. One of those developed countries will come of the vaccine soon. That was not the case. We were at home for 5 months, and I knew I had to do something. So I went online, and I found that overwhelmingly that majority of the online resources comes from the West. So I'm like, oh, let me do something that is in public demand, that is a popular demand rather, for the public schooling system. So I started to make videos. I started to make the Nigerian curriculum in our indigenous language. And off the back of the popularity of that event, I went out again. I was able to raise funds. I was able to crowdfund, and I raised almost $3,000. I got that. I partnered with an engineering institution. It's very local indigenous engineering institution, and I was able to get tablets, install all those videos, non-conventional educational resources, and distribute them to all the 35 kids in my class for free. Now schools have resumed, and I've been privileged to sit in some classes, like some other classes, where their kids did not learn at all during this pandemic period, and it's just rather unfortunate. It has been so detrimental to whatsoever growth and development they have gotten in our previous terms when they were schooling, and now it's just like you're starting afresh. Imagine if everyone took up this baton. Imagine not just teachers. Imagine if people, you don't have to be a teacher, you just have to be human, took up this baton and said, oh, I have to find a way to make sure people from low-income schools, students from low-income schools, people from low-income communities get access to the technological resources that they need. It would have been an entirely different case right now. And because of that, my kids are in this new term, there is just so much more improvement even before. Like, so now we have kids coming back into school, and they're just like, oh, you're starting afresh. But my kids, there's been a lot of improvement. Now they're telling me about, oh, this film that they watched, this game that they played, what they learned. Now they can even operate my phone. That was before they could not take my phone to take pictures, but now they can do that. And even more than just exposure that they get, now we've incorporated it into our normal school day using these technological devices that they have, and it has just been magnificent. There's been a lot of growth, there's been a lot of learning, increased exposure, digital and literacy skills, just everything across board. So I know, in my opinion, we need to incorporate all these strategies. We need to prioritize the use of technology. We need to partner. Yes, there needs to be a public-private partnership, and there needs to be a policy development. We need to take it seriously for us to promote access and use of technological resources in our education system. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Shayamba. It's really interesting how you could make such a difference in one school during this very challenging time. One follow-up question I have, though, is that you were able to do all this with one school. If say this were to be scaled up to have an impact on all schools, how do you think we could go about this?
Thank you so much for that question. So I mean, off the back of the success of that project, after I finished fundraising, a lot of people were still reaching out to me that they would like to contribute to being part of this project. So I am working with the team now, and we are working to set up the older generation above us, the way they found, the way they were able to understand technology and be able to use technology was through the proliferation of cyber cafes all around. So we are saying, oh, now we want to do that for the younger generation. We want to do a sort of digital center where people from the community can go there'll be virtual reality equipment there. There'll be digital devices. I think it's similar to something one of the organization of one of the speakers, what they did. So do that across the communities, across different communities in the states we are in now. And works are already ongoing. We've already gotten approval for the project and it's set to commence. So different people, not just even students, people in the community can have access to digital resources at tip of their finger in their community and learn them, understand them, be able to use them, maximize them.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Precious. Now, I'd like to go on to our next speaker, Mrs. Ronke Shayamba, who is the Special Advisor to the Ogun State Governor on Primary, Secondary, and Technical Education. She's a resourceful educationist, prolific writer, an accomplished business lawyer, a Microsoft certified professional, and an inspiring motivational speaker. Mrs. Shayamba was the first Director General of the Lagos State Office of Education Quality Assurance in 2015, where she has served under 3 successive governors. She was appointed Special Advisor to the Ogun State Governor on Education in 2019, where she has been involved in training of teachers and the rebranding of quality assurance in Ogun State. She has a bachelor's in education and an LLB in business law. Mrs. Shayamba, I wonder if you can just give us a sense of what the special challenges have been over the COVID period and how the government, your state government, has been able to address it, and whatever other strategies you'd like to talk about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyewole. Can I just say good afternoon to everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me. Well, the whole episode started from the 23rd of March when schools had to be shut down because of COVID-19. And the key question in Ogun State was, what would happen to all the children of Ogun State? 450,000 students in primary and about 700 in secondary. What would we do? Now, with that, what we did as the very first state in in Nigeria was to actually set up the DigiClass. And that is a digital class where we had to involve quite a lot of our teachers. And what we did was to quickly look for CREAM teachers, because not everybody will be able to be ICT literate enough. So we were very fortunate to go and to actually use some teachers. So we identified them and they were able to provide interactive sessions for our students at home. So with that as well, you will see that when we started, we were quite worried that we didn't want to focus just on the public school needs, but to focus on all the needs of our public school children and the private school children. So as a result, we had to go into the curriculum to see how we could integrate some of the things and to identify areas to actually address. So with that, we went on television and we realized that television was only covering about 30% of our students. So it wasn't ideal enough. And so we had to introduce the radio station as well. And not only that, to set up a website platform where children that don't have electricity at that particular time can still, because we downloaded all our lessons to the website. And so children were able to access us easily. Then in terms of, because whether we like it or not, I know we tried our best to cover at least 70% of our students, because you will have children in rural areas that might have missed out and so on. So what we did also was to work with community leaders and to see how we could actually access students more. So that really helped us. Then we had quite a lot of, because I'm speaking as a policymaker, from the government's perspective, because we were also working with private schools where there was a lot of e-learning lessons going on. And also, I must say, in Ogun State, we've had very, very enthusiastic teachers. Some of them were able to set up WhatsApp platforms as well to access their students. So with that, that really gave us a lot of opportunity to be able to access a lot of our students. But we wanted to know, because I remember the governor asking us that, how do you know that children are accessing you? And how do you know that what you're doing has actually made an impact? So he was the one that started us up to be able to set up assessment, particularly for SS3 students. And the assessment, we didn't do it during the weekday because we felt a lot of people might not have devices because moms and dads might not be around. So we did that on a Saturday, and about 18,000 students actually did that assessment. And within 2 days, we were able to mark it and to send results online. As we speak, if you go online to www.ogundigiclass.ng, you'll be able to see the analysis of the result. You'll be able to see the children's result, because the only ones we didn't publish at that time was children that got less than 39%. But we published everybody's result. And with that as well, it has made our teachers to actually see that IT technology is the in thing, because what worked before COVID-19 unfortunately cannot work after COVID-19. And as a state as well, another thing is to put the 27,000 teachers that we have in Ogun State, we've put all of them on learning management system, where clearly all the teachers can see themselves, can work with themselves, and we've been running a lot of virtual training. So that is really, really helping us as a state, I must say. So to me, technology has come to stay, and we all need to embrace that. But we still have few areas, where children are not accessing technology. We still have a lot of needs because as a state, COVID-19 has made us to review ourselves, that there's a need for us to review and revamp the curriculum. Because what worked, as I said before COVID-19, unfortunately cannot work. And in as much as states cannot review the curriculum by themselves, but you can contextualize it to have your own scheme of work that would actually address technological needs better. And that's something that Ogun State is doing at the moment. And I must say, teachers are very, very enthusiastic as well about it. But to me, if I'm going to advise, I will say technology has come to stay. And the likes of UK, where you've got to have your IT skills, even as a qualified teacher, is something that we all need to look into and say, yes, let's embrace technology more. But I'm sure you will ask me more questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Shayamba.
Thank you.
By the way, I'd like to encourage members of the audience to send in their questions. Just use the Q&A facility to send your questions so we can try and respond to as many of them as possible. Mrs. Shayamba, just to follow up on that excellent presentation, you say that technology is here to stay. I mean, I guess one of the, if there's a silver lining behind the COVID pandemic, is that there's now a recognition that technology is important, and not just for the COVID period, but after the COVID period. But who are the other actors that you need to work with to make sure that this is integrated, that this technology is permanently integrated into the educational system in Nigeria, besides the government?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Iwole. I think this is a time where every stakeholder needs to work together. Because if I'm talking about stakeholders, I'm talking about how even from the government side, there's nothing government can do without using technology. And in terms of knowing the number of students, I mean, doing the school improvements, school-based, I'm talking of the management system now, the school-based management system. You've got to actually bring in technology, because with that, it makes you to know who are in your schools. And also, where are the gaps? What are the things that you need to do? Because that will inform your planning. Then you've got to also carry the parents. It's high time the parents also know that it is very, very important for their students or for their children to be able to be supported with the use of technology. I mean, and that's something that we have been propagating in Ogun State, that people have got to set priorities right, where we can have the Android phone. Because the Android phone, before COVID-19, we were all propagating that, oh, don't bring your phone to school, don't bring this. But nobody can say that anymore. Because we've all realized that even the phone now can be used as a tool to actually transform education. And that's why we need the support of all our parents. We need private partners also to actually embrace the use of technology in schools. Because there are so many software out there, but the key thing is, we all need to look at which one is robust enough to be able to feed into what we need for today's education. And that's something that we all need to work on. And not only that, telecommunication companies have got to support schools and to support government as well. Because you will see that in the last 6 months, everybody has been selling data, everybody's buying data. In fact, I don't know how the telecommunication department must have been working. But to me, it's something that everybody needs to embrace. How can we actually give an enabling environment where data can be subsidized, where also we can prioritize internet in every area, even in the rural areas? Because we've got to see that the use of internet now, internet facilities, is actually not luxury, but it is a necessity that should be there for every area, not just for the urban areas, but even for the rural area. And to me, it's going to improve the IGR for the country. So that's something that we all need to work with. Government has got to see it. Parents have got to look at the needs. And also, every stakeholder, I must say, even the children must see that if they want to be benchmarked with the children of, of the other parts of the world, then everybody has got to really see how we can use technology more. And it brings lesson to life. It makes it more lively and children can understand better. And to me, now we can have facilitators. For example, Mr. Yewale, you are not in Nigeria at the moment, but all of us are actually communicating. So technology has brought all of us together. So we all need to work with every stakeholder. Sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Shayamba. Now I'll go on to our next presenter, Ms. Ella Togu, who is a global health and development professional working to strengthen health and educational systems in resource-constrained settings. She has proven experience from across public, private, non-profit, and research institutions in Africa and Europe, where she's worked in programs, training, policy, advocacy, and research. She currently manages programs at Slum to School Africa, a leading education development organization. So, Ella, why don't you just tell us about what strategies you have in mind?
Thank you, Bayo, and it's been very exciting hearing from everyone on the wonderful things that we have all been doing to propagate education technology. So I'll just be sharing from our experiences at Slum to School. And I'll start with this quote by George Couros, and it says, "Technology will never replace great teachers, but in the hands of great teachers, it is transformational." So I'll just give a preamble of the problem. Before COVID, Nigeria had the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. And even the children that were in school were not getting the best in terms of quality on a larger scale. And we also know that the world began to change, education and the way we do things began to evolve, and it seemed like we were not catching up. And then COVID happened, and it even puts more children at risk. It even made the situation already worse, and it was the most disadvantaged children who were put at risk because learning was abruptly halted. And as was mentioned before, previous gains of education were put at risk, and now we know that technology in education was no longer a frivolity but a necessity. So at Slum to School, we looked at this. We've been working with children from slums and remote communities and disadvantaged backgrounds for 8 years, and we knew that we could not afford to have our children stop learning. So we wanted to make sure that we continue to provide quality education to our beneficiaries and ensure that they had uninterrupted learning to preserve their past educational gains. We also wanted to ensure that we provide globally relevant content to our beneficiaries and also build diverse skills while they were learning. We knew we could not directly control the curriculum in school, but we knew certain skills that we wanted to impact on our beneficiaries, and this was an opportunity. And we also wanted to preserve the socialization component of education. Just as COVID hit and lockdowns happened, we did a survey in the community, and we saw that socialization in learning was very important to our beneficiaries. So we needed to tailor our solution to that need. And it was very important for us to build digital literacy in our beneficiaries. So our solution was to build what we now know as our virtual learning program, which also houses our virtual classroom, which is the first of its kind in this part of the world. Our virtual learning program, we gave our beneficiaries tablets preloaded with content, and they had access to our virtual classroom, which was like a classroom as they would go to school on a normal day, where they can interact with their peers and with their teachers. and then they had access to different and diverse learning content from both formal education, STEAM education, technology, where they could learn and build up on their 21st century skills. We had another program, the cluster learning program, but for this particular talk, I'll just focus on what we had done for the virtual learning program. So I'll just pick on two major strategies we did when designing the program to ensure that it met the needs that we intended. So the first thing we made sure we did was adapt our solution to the need and to our context. So we built around the need of COVID, we built around the need of access, we built around the need of socialization, and we made sure that we tailored it to suit our content. For example, there were a broad spectrum of solutions available, and what our own solution did was not entirely create a new one. We adapted certain things that were already existing. So for our virtual classroom, I'll try to describe it. Kids can log in at the same time to a class. They have their teacher and they interact like they are in a classroom. I wish I had enough time to show the video. It's just something that is really phenomenal and interesting. So what we did was we looked at what was already obtainable internationally. We knew certain, because of financial constraints and border constraints, there were certain things that we couldn't get. So we had to make certain things available from what we had available locally and what exactly our beneficiaries needed. We needed to also make sure that the tablets we were given could meet certain needs. We know we have electricity problems in Nigeria, so we had to ensure that whatever tablets we were given had long battery lives and our kids would not be cut off from learning. So it was very important to us to consider our results and our desired results and our beneficiaries' peculiarities. Then the second thing that we tried to do, and which really helped strengthen the quality of our program, was to think broadly and holistically. So it was very important. If you have a good solution and it's not being utilized, then it really isn't serving its purpose. So the first thing we did was we knew that just giving devices and having this platform was not enough. We had to provide internet for the kids. We needed to make sure that the devices were safe and that they were not put at any risk. So we installed trackers, we inscribed on it to make them less attractive for thieves. And we also trained our beneficiaries on using their device. We couldn't just give them things without ensuring that they properly knew how to utilize the devices and do everything that they needed. We also thought about things that could prevent them from staying in classes or not attending. One thing we really felt was very key, especially to kids in that demographic, was that they may be required by their parents or their families to engage in economic activities, which, I mean, was very, very understandable, even though not ideal in the circumstance of COVID. So what we did was we had on the side of the program to support it a relief bank initiative where kids could come and get basic foodstuff and sanitary items for their family to ensure that they're not cut off from class. We also made sure that we properly engage their communities and their parents at the beginning of the intervention, stating clearly the time commitments they will need, giving them all these options. So as I said, no matter how good a solution is, if it cannot be accessed and used, then it's meaningless. So moving forward, as we try to build more technology solutions, it's very important that we think very holistically at everything that would be involved. So that's just what I have to share on some of the strategies we used at Slum to School.
Oh, thanks very much. That was sounds like a very exciting program. So how do you make it all happen, though? Where do you get the funding from? Who did you have to partner with to make this possible?
So I think I'll say, first of all, when something works, people would be more interested in investing in it. So initially, when we were still fleshing out the idea and we didn't have a lot of funds, we had approached some previous donors and organizations that had worked with us and trusted us and knew the sort of things we're interested in as an organization. Slum to School has always been very forward-thinking, very technology-driven. So we could find some of our previous donors to make the little initial investment that we needed to set up the studio and get the initial tablets for the pilot beneficiaries. And afterwards, when we had launched and people had seen that this was working and we had impact stories and it was carried on. It was easier to garner more support. We also applied for grants. We got an innovation grant from Prudential Zenith, and that really went a long way. And I mean, our target is to get more kids on the platform, so we're still very actively in the process of raising funds. But I think all I'll say to that is, if you have a solution that works in your context and people can see it and understand, it's just like how founders in Silicon Valley raise funds from venture capitalists. As long as you can prove your value and that it works and it can be sustainable, it's easy. And then I think we can all tell by now that technology is here to stay. Children born in this age, in the 21st century, are literally born into technology and they can't escape it. So yeah, that's how we dealt with funding.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Ella. Now we're going to go next to Mr. Kayode Oluwaseun. Now, just a little bit of background. Mr. Oluwaseun is a Teach for Nigeria alumnus, and he's the founder of SchoolLinka, a social enterprise that has had an enormous impact on the educational space since its inception. Partnering with government agencies, individuals, non-profit organizations, and private sector organizations has helped drive Kayode's vision of improving teacher quality and delivery by leveraging technology to create an ecosystem of highly skilled teachers for schools in Africa. He is a grantee of the Kingdom of Netherlands OCN program and the Peace First Acceleration program. He has received the Doyen Educator Award for his contribution to education and was a finalist at the Active Citizen in Education Awards. So welcome, Kayode. I wonder if you can share some strategies with us.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Bayo. I mean, it's really a big privilege to be sharing to this global audience this afternoon. It's afternoon here in Nigeria. I'll be sharing strategies coming from two angles, and that was when I was teaching as a teaching fellow of Teach for Nigeria, and as well when I started SchoolLinka after my 2-year fellowship program. So in 2017, I began this journey to start teaching in a public primary school in Ogun State. And I mean, when I got into the classroom, we had the 6-week summer institute program where they had kind of immersed us into the education space to know what the realities are, what the issues are, what the challenges are. But what we met on the first day in the classroom was really, really, far beyond what we had imagined. I got into my classroom in grade 4, and then like around 70 to 80% of my students cannot speak or write in English language, which is the official medium of instruction. And for me, I felt like this was like a huge issue. I mean, how am I supposed to teach these kids maths, English, and basic science if this is a current challenge that we have in the classroom? And so I started thinking of ways to solve this. We started different initiatives in the classroom. I was really, really motivated to want to change this narrative for these kids. We started the reading clinic where I had to take these kids back to the basics. They had to start learning the letters and their sounds and pairing letters together to form these CV words, CVC words, 3-letter words, and 4-letter words. And that's how we were moving. But the rate at which we were moving was really slow because still the kids were not able to catch up with their work at their grade level. And for me, I just kept on being inquisitive. I wanted to know what is the best way to solve this. And during my asking strong whys behind this issue, I found out that one thing stood out. It was one fact that the kids in my classroom were naturally not motivated to learn. So they were coming from communities where the best or the richest person there is actually a tout, or is actually someone in one criminal activity, someone who does not exemplify, will I say, does not show a good example of what the power of education can do to transform lives. So they were surrounded by parents where the father is a drunkard and the mother is a person selling the drink to the father. So it was like a big issue, right? And then I was like, if something will change here, if something will happen, what I need to do is to find ways to increase intrinsic motivation in my kids. I've done a lot of extrinsic motivation, try to motivate them from, talking to them, but I needed something that will push them from within to want to learn. And that's how I started looking for ways to expose them beyond their community, because I feel like if they see beyond their community, they'll be able to want to learn and be like, the success stories that I present to them outside. And how best can I do that? I possibly can afford, I possibly can afford plane tickets and visa fees for over 64 students in my classroom to travel to the US for a vacation. I can't even afford it for them to go to, go to Ghana here, right? So I needed to find ways to help them travel without passports and visas. And that's where technology came into play. Mrs. Shayamba was saying something around, the world is a global village. We are having this session currently online, and then we are all having this conversation. And that is the same thing I applied to my classroom while I was teaching. I was like, the world is a global village. I speak on WhatsApp voice call, video call to people 10,000 miles away, right? We don't need to be in the same location. And so I started going online to look for how I can connect my kids to what they need to become motivated. I started sharing stories that I got online, stories of people who rose from nothing, and then sharing it to the classroom. And these stories I gathered online. But something happened that was really fortunate in my teaching career that I will never forget. And I feel like this is one thing that actually transformed my classroom. It was when I found out about a tech tool called Empatico. So Empatico is this virtual tool that connects students from across the world. So children in Nigeria can connect with children in US their own age and have virtual interactions with them. And so when I found this tool, I signed up on time and then began to use the tool. I connected my classroom. We're fortunate to have this amazing partner. Her name is Mrs. Wendy from US. And then we connected with her classroom. She connected with our own classroom, and we had virtual interactions. I must say it wasn't easy because I was working in the public education system, and I must thank, the Ogun State government, for giving us that free hand to actually be able to test out innovations in our classrooms. And then when I started, we didn't have the tech facilities. I had to bring my TV from home, my generator from home to power this for the students. And it was really interesting. And something that I began to see change was the fact that the students in my class, who I call my 64 champions, began to acquire skills, social-emotional learning skills that began to affect the academic outcomes. They became more empathetic. That means they started putting themselves in the shoes of other people. They became very curious. They wanted to learn more because they are seeing things that they've not seen before. They started speaking to kids that they will naturally just see on magazines, on newspapers. They are becoming much more kind, right? Because they are able to, connect with other people from different parts of the world. So it was really transforming my classroom, and this built in them self-confidence. Now they had friends, Jason from the US, that they can always speak with. So they were more confident, and this attitude, affected their academic outcomes as well. So when I now come in front of the classroom and tell my kids, you can learn this, they believe outrightly because they know they can learn it, because they've seen kids like them that can learn it or that have learned it. So they become much more self-confident. And that really, really affected, the academic outcomes. And I want one part of my story that I would really love to, highlight here is a story of a girl in my classroom. Her name is Ajoke. So Ajoke one time walked onto me after one of our virtual calls, and she said, Mr. K, I want to learn how to be speaking English very well. What do I need to do? For me, I paused and I was like, oh, you just need to read your books and all of these things. Then a week after, she came back to meet me and said, Mr. K, what are the steps that I need to take to know how to speak English very well? And for me, at that point, I had to take that question really serious. And the reason why this was happening was because Ajoke has seen her mates in the US who can speak English very well, and she wants to know how to speak. So I now told her that, well, these are the things you need to do. And before I knew it, I started seeing Ajoke coming to sit down beside me in the classroom during break, bringing out our English book, literature books to read. I didn't have to tell Ajoke, go and read. Ajoke was now very motivated from inside to want to go and study. And this is what the technology has been able to help me do in my classroom. So I'll just like to cut this off and go to like the second angle. So while I finished my Teach for Nigeria fellowship in 2019, I started a social enterprise. It's an edtech social enterprise called SchoolLinka, where we are, increasing access to professional development for teachers. Since we started in February 2019, we've worked with over 1,500 teachers across Nigeria and other parts of Africa, upskilling them and then training them. We have our physical training sessions that that happened in Lagos. We had one that happened in Abuja. We had virtual interactions. But during the wake of COVID, something happened. And what happened was that training were not going to happen anymore, right? Schools are closed. Teachers were not motivated. And something that I and my team talked about was that if we want children to continue learning, then teachers need to start learning, notwithstanding the physical barriers and the social distancing. So we moved 100% of our training online. We started Zoom classes, and teachers begin to throng in their hundreds. We started this program called the Digital Learning Pro, where first we want teachers to build the skills that will help them, create and maintain an online and digital learning classroom, be able to power learning even when they are not within the four walls of the classroom. And we've had hundreds of teachers doing that course. In June, we were able to launch our online learning platform. It's just like a Udemy for teachers, where teachers can go on, sign up as users, and take online courses. So what we are committed to do at SchoolLinka basically is to ensure that teachers keep learning, notwithstanding the social distancing. Students keep learning, notwithstanding the social distancing, and ensure that everybody at home is confident of those who sit in front of their students in the classroom. So that's my story, from the teaching aspect and also from training teachers angle. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. So just to follow up on that, how do we scale up these very exciting programs that you've talked about? How do we make sure that this goes beyond a certain group of people?
Yes, to scale it, I'm glad that someone like Mrs. Shayamba is on the call, someone like Precious Adegunle and Ella on the call. These are people in different spaces. Mrs. Shayamba from the public space, Ella from the non-profit space, and Precious as well as a probably let's say social entrepreneur or something. So we need everybody to actually come together. It's a systemic issue, and then we all need to come together, pull all our collective, our efforts together, and start something like a collective leadership on this. Let us own this program. Let us own the concept of closing the digital divide, helping children in low-income communities have access to, technology devices, and then helping teachers also learn the skills that they need to power, technology learning in their classroom. We need all hands on deck. And then if we can have those hands on deck, definitely there's no mountain we can pull down. So I just believe in collective leadership, collective efforts in scaling this work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the speakers. A couple of questions have been coming in. So for Precious, a question from Chile, and it goes like this. Here in Chile, our government isn't doing much to move towards blended or distance learning. Which is better, blended or distant learning?
Thank you so much for that question. Before I answer the blended or distant learning, I think it's up to us. Majority of these battles are fought online, and it's ironic that the people that need technology do not have the technology to fight these battles themselves. They don't have access to internet, they don't have access to digital devices. So it's up to us to help them fight this battle. It's up to us to help us clamor for them. So in your own capacity, you can, petition the government that, we need to make sure that these communities have access to digital resources. And to add to what Sheung said, when we grew up, we all grew up that, the public sector is the one that deals with welfare and the private sector deals with profits. That is not a sustainable action, especially for countries in the underdeveloped country like mine. We need to come together. If the private sector just continues to just fattening their pockets, it's going to come back in future and bite our butts. So we all need to come together and find a way. You need to take personal responsibility. The private sector needs to take personal responsibility. I'm of the opinion that blended learning is so much better. I think Ella was the one that spoke about socialization and how important it is in the learning experience. So yes, blended learning over and over and over again. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And another question, this time for Mrs. Shayamba. We've been talking about revamping the curriculum for years. Is contextualizing technology an immediate possible reality?
Thank you very much for that. It is definitely an immediate reality in Ogun State because we have 3 projects that we are focused on the moment, and review and revamp. I mean, that is to introduce STEM curriculum, and with that, it's going to help us to actually review ourselves and contextualize to have our own personalized scheme of work for Ogun State. And also, as of this morning, I know with Southwest as well, that's something that Southwest is also looking at. So to me, it is a reality and it's something that will come. Because even with technology, I mean, with TVET as well, technical and vocational education is something that Ogun State is looking at. So not just the secondary schools or the primary schools, but we're looking into technical and vocational education as well. And we're also working with non-formal education. So there are quite a lot of things we're working on in Ogun State. So it is a reality.
Thanks very much. And a question for Ella. What technologies do you use to assess learners? How can you connect with children who live with no access to technology?
So as I had mentioned, in our case, we gave them digital devices. So we gave children personal tablets, and I had spoken about a separate program called the Cluster Learning Program for younger learners. We gave teachers, community-based teachers, laptops where they could also use digital technology to communicate and train a cluster of children, 30 children per cluster. But in our own case, we gave our own children devices, and we also provided access to internet because it was very important that they were connected to the internet to get into their virtual class and to also partake in the other programs that they wanted. There was a second part to the question. I don't think I remember it anymore. Could you take it again, sir?
Well, actually, we need to round up now. So if you don't mind, I'll just like to go to the vote of thanks. And I'd like to thank everyone for what has been a most engaging session. Thanks to all the panelists for their very insightful comments, and to the audience for their questions. You've all been a font of knowledge. Congratulations to Teach for Nigeria for putting these sessions together. Your selection to play this role is a recognition of your incredible achievements in the short time since your establishment. A special thanks to Sandra and the rest of the team for their expert coordination. I know it hasn't been easy, and your service is very much appreciated. Finally, many thanks to the teachers and students of Baptist Primary School, Ogun State. We're very proud of your successes, students and teachers alike. To educators everywhere, we value the role you play in inspiring our children to learn. We celebrate you and owe you a huge debt of gratitude. I'd like to end with a quote by George Couros, who was referred to earlier by Ella. And he said, if we're going to help our students thrive, we have to move past the way we have always done it and create better learning experiences for our students than we had ourselves. This does not mean replacing everything we do, but we must be willing to look with fresh eyes at what we do and ask, is there a better way? We would expect the same mindset from our students, and as educators, that question is the first step on the path to a better future for education. I'd just like to leave you with that final thought and hope it guides our educators and policymakers as we strive for transformational change in our respective countries. Thank you very much, everyone.